And we're live. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for another episode with Pursuit of Purpose and What Are We Doing? As we've discussed in the past few episodes, this series that we've been on is about our species' addiction to distraction and how it seems to be a global pandemic. I'm Rob with Pursuit of Purpose. I have with me...
I'm Chuck.
And we have a very special guest contributor today. I'm going to let him introduce himself.
Yes, sir. Howard Bailey. I am a instructor at the Marsec College in Orange in technical programs and a founder of Industrial Workforce Solutions, where we work in the field doing training also.
You said a founder of Industrial Workforce Solutions. Are you any relation to working with that guy that we've had on here a couple of times?
Yeah, we know each other.
Oh, you know each other. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What's that guy's name? Elton something? Yeah. Kind of crazy. I mean,
we do the same thing. We both of us have the same thing, but his is primarily safety, and mine's going to be more the hands-on and technical side. So we
very good.
Yes, we do the same thing.
Yeah.
So what do you do exactly out there in your profession? Tell the folks for those of in our audience that haven't met you yet and haven't seen your episode where we talk about your actual story, which we'd encourage everybody to do.
Yeah.
But just give them a little bit of your background, what you do.
Well, the short version is, if you go to the gas pump and you put gas in your car, that gas, that all had to be refined. My responsibility and my role in industry is to make sure that equipment, the pumps, the motors, all of the valves, all of that, anything that moves, rolls, spins, that's my lift, is to make sure that it happens. So you can call it maintenance, millwright, boilermaker, all of those types of occupations. It is my task to train new hires coming into the field. So I'm going to reskill, but also with workforce, I work with workforce, Texas workforce specifically, in upskilling. So we want to take someone that maybe has a good background in millwright, that we can take them and move them over into the electrical side, give them an instrumentation and an electrical. So become more of a multi-craft individual, which ups their skill. They make more money. They're not out making pizza. They're out there working in the field. And that's my main thrust.
So Howard, what you do is you prepare people to actually enter their career.
Correct.
To develop a career in a trade.
Right.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So we've been talking about the addiction to distraction, and a lot of the elements dealing with the addiction to distraction are derived from this magical little device that we find in all of our pockets and all of our hands most of the time. Right. How do you see that? I mean, you've been in industry now. We were discussing before the show for, my goodness, a long time.
Yeah, 40 years. Yeah.
How do you see that affecting the focus of young people getting ready to enter the workforce?
How do I see it, or how do I deal with it? Those are two totally different things.
Yeah, I'd like to see how you perceive the metamorphosis of change in focus, like their ability to focus, their willingness to focus, and then I'd like to see how you deal with it. I'd love to see both of those two angles, wouldn't you?
Yes.
Yeah, so one of the things that I say in every time, every class, even if that student's had me before, the first thing I'm going to say when I walk in that classroom is I'm going to say that now we're entering into, and I don't want to get really heavy into industrial revolutions, but we go back to what? With the books, and we're first Gutenberg press, and then we go into the future. Now we're going into what we call Industry 4.0, Industry 5.0, which if you don't have this, you can't survive. Okay, so that's where they're heading. So I'm having to teach a millwright how to use a laptop, which is very interesting. Well, that means that to me, in the 21st century, the most important life skill that a person is going to have on the job site is the ability to be indistractable. If that makes sense. I don't know if that's a word or not, but it's my word.
Yeah, right? No, I like it.
If we're distractible, if we're distracted in the workplace, if we're distracted in the classroom, we're distracted on the road, we have just cost our employer a considerable amount of I think Loom, one of those, did a study, and it was, I want to say 450 billion dollars a year globally is the cost of what we call multitasking or
Wow.
distractions. You're in a workplace, someone stops and says, "Hey, I need you to go do B." Well, that just costs you, I think average is 20 to 25 minutes. Am I pretty close? Y'all heard that statistic before?
Okay.
So if I get pulled off a task, it's 25 minutes before my brain's focused back on that thing again.
Wow.
And for driving, I think it's about 30 seconds. So if you look at a text while you're driving, you're almost 30 seconds before you realize what you're doing in a car. And that's stats. That's just hard numbers.
Right.
So I have to get that student to understand when you come into my classroom, and I'm going to have you, if it's an industrial or an electrical program, and I'm fixing to put you on a 4160 volt motor, and you're going to get into that bucket and you're distracted, things don't end well for you or for the company.
Yeah, forget dollars.
Forget dollars.
Loss of life right there. I mean, you got loss of limb, loss of life, and, complete tragedy.
Right. So I have to get them to understand that their focus is absolutely vital. It's not just, we need to do it because I want you to sit and pay attention to me. So for me, my craft as an instructor is I'm trying to thread the needle of between their anxiety being up here and I'm so far over their head they don't know what I'm doing and they get bored and they zone out, or I'm so base and foundational that they're bored and they zone out. So I'm always trying to play that. And that's what we do in society. If I'm bored, I'm going to be distracted. Right?
Or distractible at the very least.
Distractible, right.
Yes.
And so how do I create how do I put into that young person the skill set of being indistractable?
So finish that out. How do you do it?
Well,
where does it begin?
I'm trying to get them to look at two things. If I'm going to put them on a motor, if I'm going to put them on a piece of equipment and they're training, one, I want them to be somewhat available. If something's going on over here, I need them to realize that that's happening. Otherwise, we end up with that, Pokemon game, they're so focused that they walk off into traffic kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we have to play both sides of it. I need you to focus on what's going on around you, but also I need you to focus on what's going on right in front of you.
Right.
And so it's just a skill set. It's just like teaching someone how to type or teaching someone how to do anything else. It's just a skill. If I do it enough and I put them out there in our building and we do this enough, pretty soon the muscle memory kicks in and they come in focused.
And I guess that lowers their level of anxiety because you do this very methodical but slow introduction of heavier and heavier and heavier responsibilities until their confidence level is high, not arrogance, confidence. Like I know how to go into this situation, which requires more and more and more focus for all kinds of risk reasons, not just the cost reasons, but obviously, the safety reasons as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It kind of sounds like it's not so much I like the way you use that Pokemon illustration about them. Like the hyper focus could be as much or more of a problem as the distraction. So they need to be present.
Right.
They need to be completely present and aware of their surroundings, not hyper focused and not distracted. They need to be balanced and present in their thinking.
Yeah. Cause isn't learning as a whole just us trying to learn how to focus on what really has meaning? So if I'm in a classroom trying to learn a meaning, even if it's philosophy or English or whatever the it is, if I'm distracted by a cell phone in a classroom, then my learning then is lower.
Yeah.
My ability to learn, my ability to process information, because I'm not getting the experience of the learning. And so that's, to me, the pivotal thing. If you if you want to text in class, then great. It's on you, not on me. I can't make you not. I mean, there's all these laws in schools that say we're not going to have phones in the classroom, that kind of stuff. That's going back to dictating something that I don't think is going to be useful.
No, you can't legislate your way into
Common sense.
Mind. It doesn't work that way. They have to want it.
Right.
And I like starting with the want in mind, which seems to be part of your recruiting and your nurturing of your industry, which is you have this slow introduction of what can be to these young people, and they start seeing that vision, like, hey, I can actually have a lifelong living, make a really good living, do a lot of really cool things. And then once they kind of buy into that, then it seems like you then start slowly rolling out for them, okay, well, this is what's going to be required of you. You're going to have to develop these skills, and one of which is this indistractability, which I love that word, by the way. That's really good.
Well, I don't even know if it's actually a word.
We're going with it, brother.
Yeah. We're going to call it, right?
Your folks at Wikipedia or whatever, they'll let anybody put stuff on there as though it's fact. So you go ahead, man. I mean,
honestly, Howard, I used to make up words like that. One of the first words I believe I made up was the unenviable. Oh, that's a very unenviable position to be in. And somebody said, that's not a real word. I said, I paid a lot of money to go to college to learn all the prefixes and suffixes. I can make up any word I want to. It's yours, brother.
Yeah. Or at the very least, we're going to call it what was the conversation from the other day? We're going to blame it on the EH3, right?
Okay.
Wasn't that right? Y'all called him EH3?
EH3.
You got me. EH2. Elton.
Oh, yes, that's 3. That's 3.
We're going to blame it on Elton, okay? Let's just
good.
Yes.
So are y'all sharing in the indistractability?
For sure. Actually, we're in meetings together at least once a month. So yeah. I think they put us in opposite sides on the room for a reason now. So
well, you tell him that he is now more influential than ever. Brother, I'm making up words live on the air thanks to you, EH3.
That's it. Yeah.
It's a fascinating thing that you brought up, and I agree with this concept wholeheartedly. You kind of took a little pivot away from the idea of distraction and focused it towards anxiety. How would you say, like you talked about, you let them text in class if they're going to text in class, because you can't really force them, or whatever. But the fascinating thing is, and I've called it anxiety, I could be wrong, but when we hear this goofy thing buzz or beep, or we see the alerts on the screen, we get this feeling of anxiety. We feel compelled that we have to see it. We have to see what's on there. We have to see who's asking for my attention, who's just whatever it is. This thing pulls at us and generates anxiety.
Right.
That is
so Chuck, I'm going to ask you a question. I at one time was going through my master's, was going to get my social workers and looking at it. So I remember a test that they did. It was called the marshmallow test. Do you remember that test? Vaguely, where they put the marshmallow in front of the kid and said, "Don't eat it."
Yes.
So, and then they
would
give
have a host of kids. They would have different kids they would parade in, statistically looking at the numbers of kids who would not touch it, and then those who would attempt, and then those who,
flip that around and put that little blinking light of that freaking notification on your phone. What would that look like? Who can sit long enough without looking at that notification and saying it's not important to me right now?
That is good. That's pretty good. So that would be another test of a person who can delay gratification. That's the marshmallow test in itself.
Yes.
Like they followed those kids throughout their lives to do the study on who was quote unquote natural success based on their ability to delay gratification. So that makes a lot of sense. That's a great comparison.
That's sort of what I'm trying to get at with what I do. Huh? What's that?
I said these bunch of marshmallows. Got to look at our phones, you know.
Oh, by the way, we're all
So,
just a bunch of marshmallows.
I got it.
so how do I make that work in class? How do I make a student understand that yes, there is a time? I mean, I'm telling you, you try to call me and I don't answer, it's because that phone isn't where I can get to it.
Yes.
Because I have to set certain times in my day that I'm going to say, there's just no phone. People try to call me after 8 o'clock. They're not going to get me till 3:30, 4 o'clock the next morning. You know, because that's when I get up and do my emails.
I want to ask you something crazy that just came to me. Like, you're a trainer and you're teaching people, helping people become acclimated into industrial work environments. What if an employer came to you with a question that would be completely, it might seem bizarre. What if they came to you and said, tell me the students from your class that don't look at their phone all day? Would you inherently, in your mind, you already probably notice who is delaying that gratification, who's picking up the marshmallow? You probably already, if you could think about your classrooms after a few weeks of teaching, you know who these kids are. You know who these people are. And with some degree of accuracy, it would probably be predictable that those are going to be the leaders. Those are going to be the ones who have the highest propensity for success in their careers. So as an employer, wouldn't you want to know who didn't eat the marshmallow?
Actually, you're spot on. I sit with these major corporations every year because we're an internship program also. So we're hiring them right out of high school and we're putting them to work in these refiners. So they're wanting to know. So when they're in the classroom, they already know. Those employers already know. So they're coming to me saying, what are you doing to help mitigate this? And so our program is really heavily designed around professional behaviors.
So another huge takeaway for our young people is that you don't think people are watching. You don't think people notice what you consider to be the less meaningful things throughout the day. You don't think people see you looking at that phone or checking your text messages. Everybody notices.
Yes.
Would you agree with that, Howard? And it says a lot about your character. It says a lot about your integrity, how tethered you are to that marshmallow. like it's crazy. I mean, that's a whole new perspective,
right,
to that.
Right.
Yep.
And so how soon do we start? This question doesn't have to be an answer. I'm just saying this for us to be thinking in our own influences. How soon do we start making this connectedness to young people, either in a direct training environment like yours or an indirect when I'm just sitting around with my nieces and nephews, and I just bring it up and I just say, by the way, and what do you think about this, and maybe use that popular test as an example. And well, then what kind of person do you want to be? You know, a person who can refrain from the marshmallow, or are you just going to eat it anyway? And then say, you know what, you don't have to tell me, guys. I'm just curious what you think. But they're thinking, man, I don't want to be this. I want to be seen as the kid that can be trusted. I hope that's what they'll conclude.
In a sense, maybe I'm a little more forceful in that, is that when we're in the classroom, even when I taught, when I was teaching in the secondary high school setting, it's like, if you want to use your phone, that's fine, you know, but I can tell you right now that your mom and dad paid for that phone, which means that if you're using it, it better be, because I was teaching engineering and physics, so it was a pretty tough course. So if you're using that thing for a calculator or for looking for something and you're smiling, you're probably not doing physics, okay? Or you're a special kind of person that's smiling doing physics, right? So, but yeah, I want them to realize that I'm watching them, and then at the end of this course, that difference between success and failure, how can you say it? A person that makes a 70 because he worked really, really hard, and a person that just didn't do nothing and made a 70, you're back to the marshmallow problem.
Yeah. Yeah, that integrity, that character.
Integrity would be the exact word you're looking to me. I would be looking for is that if I'm indistractable, do I have enough integrity in me to say that yes, it is a problem I deal with, then I'm going to leave it in my backpack during class. Then it's going to show your true character.
That is so profound.
Very.
I hope there's enough young people out there that pick up on this message. Whether or not they see this episode, it'd be great if they did. But one of the things that we hope here at Pursuit of Purpose by discussing this topic is that we can hopefully generate a bit of a movement to bring people to the understanding that this is, as you say, an illustration of your character. You are showing the outside world how much you can't take it without immediate gratification.
Right.
How much you can't be committed to a cause and present in a moment. How much you have to feed your addiction to distraction.
Yes.
And that is crazy. Like I really appreciate your perspective on that. It's very helpful.
You know, we all three visit with a lot of people. We do. We're in the human development business, or whatever clever phrase we'd like to use. And I believe all three of us would agree that at the core of every conversation we're in, people want to be trusted. They want to be trusted that there could be some confidement. I can confide information with you, and then I can also task you. And I
just made that one up too.
I did. Look at us, man.
It's
We are making up words.
Confidement.
Yes.
You can use that, Howard.
Yeah. Yes.
Keep going.
Please feel free. Yeah.
Tell Alton he can use it too. So.
There we go. But that's what they want. They want to be trusted, and so directly or indirectly, we're hopefully getting them to think, am I really behaving in that trustworthy way? And so if it's in a classroom and here you are as an instructor, and I'm just using, the distractor right in front of me, which is the cell phone, that's a good object lesson right there. And then we can have some other indirect object lessons, like the driving statistics. It takes you 30 seconds to refocus, and how far down the road have you gone, and how many cars have you passed, and you're not even really fully focused yet, and how risky is that? And those are the little things that start to hopefully get people's attention.
Right. And I watched a read, I don't know where I got it from. I think it was a TED Talk, because I do a whole lot of TED Talks. I think they're cool. But I think it was someone from Brigham Young University that was doing a distractibility test. They would get subjects alcohol. They would get them to that legal limit. They would put them on a trainer or a virtual car, drive them, see their mistakes. Then they would take someone with a cell phone, same test. And the drunk drivers were safer than the texters, and the ones that when they had it were texting and hands-free. So it wasn't, there were several variables within this experiment. The drunk drivers tend to overcompensate. Like when they hit the brakes, they're going to hit the brakes harder. And so when you transfer that over to real life, a drunk driver is going to be more, I would say, realizing he's going to go to jail if he gets caught. So he's going to be purposely safer.
That's right. Mm-hmm. That's a funny thing up, because a drunk driver, they're actually like hyper focused on trying to overcome their drunk and prove to everyone that they're not drunk, while as a sober driver with a distraction just feels overconfident.
Yeah. So how much does that cost us a year?
That's amazing.
Yes.
That's a great.
And when you compare that, just point. Okay, we're trying to lower drunk driving, and I'm not saying that drunk driving is okay. It's that, would you compare the two? If I'm going to have to be up against somebody, I'm like, okay, I'll take the drunk driver, not the guy with a cell phone in his hand.
It's great. I love the fact that is a study, not an opinion. They actually
say study. Yeah. I think it's Brigham Young. I'm not sure.
So I have a quick question in that vicinity. So I know that there are folks who, I don't know how they do it. I don't know if the car does it automatically or if they turn on a mode. But if you text them while they're driving and you don't know they're on the road, it'll send you back an alert saying currently driving there's a script. It'll send you, and then I'll call you as soon as I stop. And I don't know what that feature is. Maybe you guys know what that feature is.
It's a setting in your phone.
It's a setting. Okay. See, it shows out. So my tech driving is easy. I don't even I may take a phone call, but I will say this though: are there similar software or similar features for industry? Like if you're in a certain industry, like the only thing you can turn on at this point is your calculator or something along those lines.
Well, I'm sure there is. I'm not aware, but because of the industry that I'm working in, I have interns in aerospace, I have interns in polymers, interns in refineries. So it is a hard no that you even have a phone on you. The Department of Defense does not want you to carry a cell phone around when you're building rockets.
Yeah.
Okay, that's just
right.
So we know, or at least that's in the first class. I'm like, yeah, here's some cell phones, but I'm telling you, when you go to your employer, you're gonna have a locker, and it's gonna go in it. Period. And there are the refineries. There are several refineries in Orange County that we do not. They just don't carry phones. They're going to be given they're going to be given a pad. So if they're going to go out and they're going to align a motor, or they're going to check conditions of something, they're going to have their own pad issued to them that they're
like a tablet.
Sir,
a tablet, like an iPad,
or iPad tablet that's going to have all their the JSA or the SOP, big word, job safety analysis, standard operating procedure. They're going to have those that they check off those boxes as they do that job.
Right.
But it won't be their own personal cell phone.
So, and that goes back to the integrity thing. It's unfortunately, it's an honor system where they're required to take their cell phone and leave it somewhere.
And if they do, and if they don't, then that's their career they're taking in their own hands.
That's exactly right. But you get to watch them before they enter that career to see which ones of them are the high risk for jeopardizing that circumstance with their own selfish desire to feed that instant gratification. That's a fascinating thing.
So do you find, on that particular note, that by the time the student who is interested gets to you, they're already more accepting of the conditions of the job environment? Like if you go into, okay, it's a no cell phone environment, so let's just start right here. Here's the basket, put your phones in it. And kids are pretty compliant, or do you find that there's more resistance?
They're compliant only because, and these are hard numbers that we work with. For every 200 applicants that I have that come into our program, we're going to get 10 that we're going to choose from. We're going to end up with 1. So the ratio was 210 to 1, and it has been consistently. And so now we have another big scare in the fact that now we've already peaked at our high school graduation numbers. Our populations are starting to decline after 2025. I don't know if y'all are familiar with this concept that we're not having as many kids as our parents did. So your graduating numbers in the United States are starting to decline. So now who we get to pick from in the future is going to be less. So if we're not mitigating this distractibility in the school system, then we're just we're kicking the can down the road.
And that's exactly what we're doing too.
Yeah. So,
but that 0.5 of all the applicants is all that gets, I guess, makes it to some level of achievable employment.
So by the time they get to me, to answer your question, is I've got a pretty select group.
Yes.
So wow. I get the ones that are going to leave that marshmallow aside, if that makes sense.
It does.
So I'm not having to necessarily deal with that in my field.
So this is a tough one, and we're getting close to the end of the show. We typically do a 30-minute show on this series, but this question I would think would be of great relevance and importance to you and to the audience. How do we help younger generations learn to leave the marshmallow? How do we help? Say it again.
Modeling.
Model. Very good. They do what they see. They do it.
I have a teacher in a high school classroom that says, don't text.
And then
Don't have your cell phone out. And all class period, that person is teaching and playing with a phone. Really?
Howard, you just brought an enormous amount of humility to me, because my wife is a 5th grade teacher. And I will tell you, her name is Denise Martin, and she teaches at Lumberton Intermediate School. And she exemplifies what you just said. She does not text me back all day long while she's teaching. And her response at the end of the day is, well, I was teaching. I'm not letting them do it. I can't do it either.
Nice.
And that is a great example of what we need, what we want in our education system at the lower levels, so that by the time they get to Howard, they know this is not acceptable behavior.
You're not going to see a phone when I'm in a classroom. You're not going to see a phone when I'm out on that production floor. It's in my office. And my wife knows, and we've been married for a couple of years now, a couple of decades. Yeah, we're working on 35 now. So she knows. And even back when I ran my own business and was out on the field, I mean, that's back when cell phones first came out, right? And we were paying, I don't know if you remember, phone bills were what, $2,500 a month back then?
It was ridiculous.
And we were happy to pay them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I didn't answer that phone because I had someone in front of me, or I had something that I was dealing with in front of me. It just, I guess because of yours and our generation, we look at it differently, but I don't think all of us do. I think we all succumb to distractibility at some point, be it over football games or basketball games or whatever. So,
and one of the tough things that we face as parents is the temptation to seek a break.
And give them a phone.
We had an amazing guest on here last week who is in administration in the school system, in the education system. He's a doctor. We call him Dr. G. And he talked about something amazing. And we don't like to hear our kids complain that they're bored. We don't like to hear them a whole lot at all when we're tired.
Right.
So we have this huge temptation to just give them technology to let them, fulfill that desire, to give them that gratification that they seek. What he brought up was an amazing point. He said, let them be bored. That's where creativity is born.
That is exactly right.
Yes.
And it changed my,
totally.
You talk about a paradigm shift, and it was so true. That's what made me think the way that I do. I mean, don't hold it against
creativity is based solely on your boredom.
Yes.
So
yes,
don't fear boredom as a parent. Let them be bored.
Right.
And I mean, think about what you're wanting to do as a grown-up. You're seeking peace. Oftentimes, you want to just sit there in the still and in the quiet.
Mm-hmm.
So teach them that that's a desirable behavior, to sit in the still and in the quiet.
Well, and we are in the creation promotion business. We one of the first things we started espousing when we started coaching together was for folks to be an owner creator. Own where you are and then create where you want to be, at least in your mind. And then we start developing the journey to get there. And I never thought until last Tuesday about boredom being the prerequisite for that. And Dr. G dropped that on us. And I'm like, oh, I have got to be bored more often, because I allowed myself. And I noticed even in our little winter moment that we had, it was so easy to have the TV running. And I thought, look at that. I'm doing exactly what we were just preaching against. Yeah. And so I had to turn it off and get dressed and go outside and create this kind of a vast moment. And I found myself thinking about things, which is, it was, his philosophy was perfect. Absolutely perfect.
Yep. And you need to look up the old NASA test that they give to NASA engineers. I don't know, we're running out of time, but the short version is they hand you a paperclip for your interview and say, okay, how many things can you do with this paperclip? And the engineers can get, 10, 12. The average human, 3, 4 things that you can do with a paperclip. Well, then someone says, well, let's do it to a 5-year-old. And they ask A 5-year-old says, can it be made of rubber? They don't look at a paperclip as a paperclip. Their creativity is so broad.
That's right.
That they can come up with hundreds. They far surpass NASA engineers. So in that young, I'm bored. Before we were given PlayStations and things like that, we had to go outside and we had a stick. We had to figure out how to make a bow and arrow out of it, right? Right? We had to create those things in our own mind.
Yes.
And the tragedy is that creativity got pulled out of us as we got older.
Yeah.
In the school system, again, I'm an instructor. I mean, I don't want to lose my job, but at the same time, we have done a real good job of pulling creativity out of people because we give them, here's a cell phone, just watch a video, right? And so we're at fault, even as a grandfather, right? It's my grandkids come, I want to watch TV. No, we're going to go off. We're going to take the Jeep. We're going to go ride around the land, or we're going to do blah, blah, blah. But I have to, because mom and dad don't let them. They think they come to grandma and grandpa's and they can watch TV. No, we're not going to do it there either. So,
well, I'll tell you what, Howard, you have been a great contributor to this topic.
thank you.
As we discussed on the show, and I want to let our audience know, or as we discussed, you and I before the show, rather, and I want to let our audience know that we're not just down on cell phones and technology. We here at Pursuit of Purpose, and Howard, I know, and every guest we have, we are proponents of technology. We're proponents of social media. We're proponents of the progress of the human race. And all of these things that we have at our fingertips now, all of this power and this ability that these phones have and give us to do, it's a positive thing. The problem comes in when we, in all of our craziness, we pervert it.
Yeah.
We overuse it, or we have a tendency to be excessive creatures.
Yes.
And that's really what this discussion is about. And I hope all of you out there in our audience will understand that we are supporters of technology. We are supporters of social media. In fact, that's how you're watching us right now. So we're not against it. We just want.
Are we using that technology for self-expansion or self-suppression? So if we're suppressing that technology, it's making us worse. If we're using it for expansion, it's making us better.
That's right.
Perfect.
That's right. And we have a comment on here. I'm going to go ahead and throw it at you, Howard, since we have it. 310 Turtle says that giving a child under 5 a phone is the equivalent to giving your child crack. Their brain is
true. That is scientifically proven. That is correct.
And then the parents say they can't sit still in a market basket and need instant gratification. And that's, like you said, it's very true. Very true. I mean, personally, in my experience, my wife and I have had basically a basketball team of kids come through our care, and we have a rule: we don't give kids a phone until they prove they can be responsible for it. We've had kids way up in age before they could have their own phone, so we don't believe there's a standard age of appropriateness to give a kid a phone.
You're right.
Is there anything else you'd like to say to that regard?
No, he's spot on. Whoever that person is true. I mean, that's what you're trying to do is trying to get that dopamine hit. You're addicted to. So now your senses are dulled over a period of time. They missed the gift of boredom.
That's right. That's right. And another one of our contributors, another person commented that, don't forget about do not disturb mode on your phone. And I think that's a great point to bring up, because all our phones, no matter what, if you have an iPhone or if you're a part of that cult with those space phones that are not iPhones, they all have a do not disturb on them. But anyway, well, Howard, thank you so much for being our guest today on the show. And thank you to all of our audience for joining us. And thank you for contributing.
Yes.
Chuck, have you anything you'd like to close with?
No, thank you, Howard. I mean, you're always an insight. I appreciate you cycling back into to our little experiment that we have going on here at Pursuit of Purpose. And thank you for those who commented this morning. We appreciate you being a part of our show as well.
Yeah, thank you all for allowing us to become a part of the pursuit of your purpose. Howard, would you like to say anything to close?
Thank you. It was an honor. I always enjoy it. Just the wisdom that you two carry and the torch that you've decided to set up. This pursuit of purpose is good for me. The Bible says that where iron sharpens iron, so one sharpens the iron of the other. And there's a whole lot of metallurgy goes along with that. But the fact that we're making each other sharper without removing any of us from each other, I'm still all me, you're still all you, but we're sharpening each other, and that's most important.
Thank you for that, Howard. Mm-hmm. And my wife would tell you that if any of you out there have an iron sword, my head is perfect. You can sharpen it on that. So
you're hard-headed like me.
Oh, my goodness. Well, everybody out there, y'all have a great day. We'll see y'all next Tuesday for another episode of What Are We Doing? And we will continue our discussion on our addiction to distraction. Thanks again. Y'all have a great day.